Hey, what's going on, everybody? Well, welcome back to the channel. For anybody that's new, you probably don't know this about me, but for anybody that's been around for a while, you know that I love breeding guppies, and that's what today's video is going to be all about. So I am actually in the process of building out a brand new fish room, and as a part of that, I need to move all of my old guppy breeding trios from the old fish room into this fish room. So today is going to be about setting up tanks for them. These are not going to be crazy aquascaped tanks or anything like that. It's going to be pretty basic, but they're going to serve two purposes. Number one is they're going to be guppy breeding tanks. Number two is they're going to be plant grow out tanks as well. Those tanks are going to be set up and actually go on this shelf right behind me right here. If you can do me a big favor, if you happen to like guppy breeding and seeing the guppy breeding videos, make sure you drop a like on this video and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. But with all of that, let's get into setting up these tanks for this room today. We went ahead and got us a tank, got this thing completely cleaned out and ready to go ahead and start putting together here. And really my process of cleaning this is you just want to use a paper towel and clean out the inside really good, just simply because this thing's been sitting on the shelf for a while. So now what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go ahead and take this really great product from API, which is this Safe and Easy Aquarium glass cleaner. And this stuff is great because you can actually use it on the inside of the tank as well. But I've already cleaned out the inside of the tank. I just want to get all of this muck and mess off the outside of this tank, just simply because it kind of gives it a cloudy appearance. But you just spray this stuff on and just wipe it off, and it is, like I said, a safe glass cleaner for your aquarium, both inside and out, which makes it fantastic. The next step is we just need to lay some substrate in here. What I'm going to be using today is the fluval stratum, and that is just simply because, like I said, we are in fact going to be using this as a dual purpose, which is for a plant grow out tank, very similar to all of these guppy breeding tanks up here. In fact, if you look right here, we have some guppies in here. We have another one up here. We have a couple of small fry in this one over here. This one right here currently has something going on with it from a plant perspective. So we've just kind of let this thing settle out and we're trying to figure out what's going on, but the fish are doing just fine. The water parameters are good. It's just something to do with maybe the substrate, because I'm using a different type of substrate in this one. I already have some of this fluval stratum that came out of another tank that we're going to go ahead and put in here. So it's full of great beneficial bacteria and everything else like that. So let's go ahead and get that in there. So now that we have our substrate in here, it's really just about getting some live plants in here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and take some of these plants from these planted tanks up here to go ahead and put down in this tank. And the simple reason for that is that these things are starting to get really overgrown, and we want to make sure that there's enough room, first off, for the fish, as well as that there's enough room for the plant growth. This first tank we're actually going to do is going to be a green tank, meaning we're going to take the green plants. This is more of a red tank. There are some green plants in here, which we'll take out of here, but the things like the broadleaf Ludwigia, which turns red under a certain light. This stem plant here, which I cannot remember what it's called, has a red stem depending on the light, which the light's not penetrating because of all the floating green plants. So we're going to go ahead and take some out of here. We'll take some out of each one of these tanks here. So to start, we're going to go ahead and take some of this wisteria, which is actually a type of hygrophilea. This is a really great plant for guppies to hide in, guppy fry. So we're going to take some of this. We'll actually take a couple of stalks of this, I believe. Go ahead and pick up one of these Java ferns out of here as well. Actually, maybe a couple of them. Those are always good. We don't want to overpopulate this tank. I have a little Anubias nana that we'll put down here as well. That's potted. We're not going to take this out of the pot. We got us an Amazon sword. We may actually grab a couple of these because there's a lot in here. We have some hornwort, which is a great floating plant we're going to take, and look at this thing. This thing just grows and grows and grows and grows. Look at all of that hornwort. Look at that. I'm just going to take this and show you this in one big bunch. And this grew from one little end, just like this, grew into this whole thing right here. Very easy plant to grow and great cover for guppy fry. This is a potted water sprite, and this thing grows really well as well. And then you can see the roots have actually started to come through the bottom of the pot and actually have started to attach to the substrate, which is good. So we're gonna put one of these in there. A little piece of jungle val that we'll throw in there. Now what we have here is some bacopa, and this bacopa is a really cool plant too. It's a stem plant. Well, now that we have all of our plants, it's really just about placing these plants in here in a way to spread out the tank and allow for the guppy fry to get around and be okay. These Java ferns are actually not going to be planted because you're not supposed to plant Java ferns, as they are rhizome based, very much like an anubias. We're going to let these float as well. What I need to do now is go ahead and get the filtration in here. And what we're using is standard sponge filters. These are hooked up to this rack, and you'll see all of that when I put out my video on how I built out my fish room. But this is an unused sponge filter, so what I'm gonna do is take one of these sponges off, which is brand new, and I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this off in the water, and we're gonna go ahead and exchange this for one of these tanks filters up here. That gives us beneficial bacteria, cycled, all ready to go, and we can add fish almost instantaneous. But before we do that, we need to go ahead and get water in here and get the water treated for chlorine and chloramine, or otherwise that chlorine will in fact kill your beneficial bacteria. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and place this guy right in here where it's going to go, which is right in the back of the tank, and I'm just gonna suction cup it right to the back wall of the tank. I'm going to adjust the outflow here because we want it closer to the top of the tank to limit the splashing and bubbles on it. What we need to do first before we do anything is go ahead and treat this water for chlorine and chloramine, and we're gonna do that with API Stress Coat Plus. This will in fact make this water completely safe. And then we'll go ahead and get this stuff mixed up in here a little bit. And we are now good and ready for some pre-cycled filter media. What we'll also be doing is adding some of this API Quick Start, which also helps the bacteria colonization to start immediately. Now granted, even with adding these chemicals, it is obviously always a good idea to wait a few days for your tank to cycle naturally. But because we're using pre-filtered media as well as the Quick Start, we can go ahead and get fish in here immediately. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and move this tank into position, as well as go ahead and turn on the aeration and make sure we have bubbles. And we have bubbles. You can't see that exactly because of the fact that the tank water is so dirty right now. We're gonna let this thing run, and let's go ahead and start working on our red plant tank. Well, it is actually the next day, and as you can see, this tank is fully cleared up, which is fantastic. And looking over here, we can see that our sponge filter is completely running and aerating the water. So this tank is absolutely ready for fish at this point. Before we get the fish in there, oh, look at all the guppies sitting here. Those are my little reds, and that is a big old pregnant female. Look at how big she is. It's got to be the biggest guppy in the world. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and start working on our red tank, which will be in this position here. And we're gonna basically set this thing up exactly the same way, but we're gonna go through that and we're gonna figure out what plants we're gonna be taking from this red tank here to go in. So let's get that done. All right, well, I've gone ahead and pre-washed this tank. No point in seeing us wash this again, but like I said in the beginning of this video, we just simply wash this thing out really well, make sure that all of the junk from the store is taken out of this tank. So with that, all we need to do now is go ahead and pour some of this planted substrate into this tank. Can we just stop for just a second and admire how amazing this tank right here looks? And look at how happy that betta fish is right there. He is so happy in this new tank. Absolutely amazing tank. If you guys haven't watched this video, make sure you watch this one next. I'll put a card right above for you to click on. So now that these tanks are cycled, it's time to get these fish in here. Now, I've gone ahead and gathered up some of these fish. The first thing that we want to do is go ahead and add this little Amano shrimp that we took out of one of the other tanks. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and literally just let this guy swim out here. And there he goes, right there. So there goes the Amano shrimp. Now, I went ahead and gathered up some of these guppies, and I want to go ahead and show you these guppies because they are going to be what's going in here next. So number one is this male right here. And this guy is absolutely beautiful. All right, so let's go ahead and get one of these females in here too. Now this female right here is one of my oldest females. And as you can see, she's absolutely beautiful too. One more little female. She is looking good as well. So we have a perfect breeding trio in here. So we've got the 2 females and we have the 1 male, and hopefully they start making babies. There's the male coming up here. He's such a pretty male too. Like that thing, he's got green and purple in his tail. Such a cool looking fish. All right, well, let's get the other ones in. So these next 2 are actually not going into this tank. And the reason is because these are not purple. These are actually red mosaics, and that is just simply because the red and blue is what the purple comes from, and that dude right there was born and is more red than purple, so we're gonna put him into this tank with this little red female right here, who also was born from our original breeding trio. So she and that male can completely breed. Now we do have a couple of smaller guppy fry in here that we're gonna actually get out and move those to a different tank. But for right now, they'll be okay in here. They're not old enough to breed as of yet. We have a whole bunch of guppy fry in the bottom of this here that we're gonna go ahead and put in this tank right here. And as you can see right here, we got all these little guppy fry. And these guys are gonna go right here into this tank. All right, finally, we need to go ahead and gather up all of our guppies that are going to be going into this red tank here. So let's go get those gathered up and see what those guys look like. Now, this next set of guppies are super cool for me anyway, and that is simply because we bred these right here in the fish room. And what these are is a mix between a blue Japanese indler and a cobra guppy. And what has come out is what looks like a Japanese blue indler and the tail of a cobra guppy. I have not gotten the color strain perfect, and there's still some culling to do to get it exactly how I want it, but I've never actually seen a guppy like this. Let me know in the comments whether you guys have ever seen Japanese blue indlers mixed with cobra guppies, but look how cool that fish is. I'm gonna pop up a picture of this guy on the screen real quick just so you can see the details of the colors and such of these guys. But as this water clears up, we'll take another look at these later on in a different video so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about as far as what they look like. All right, guys, well, hopefully you went on to enjoy the video today with all of these new little guppies that you got to see, as well as I hope more than anything you have decided to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and dropped a like on this video. We have another video coming on the pond right here soon. In fact, you can see a bag right there where we have fish acclimating to this pond, and that will be coming out next. So make sure you turn on those notification bells so you don't miss the content coming out. If you haven't followed us on Instagram, please go ahead and do that now as well. And with all of that, guys, I'm truly grateful. Thank you so very much, and we will see you next time.